Welcome to the Get Your Healthy Life podcast, the space where hope, healing, and holistic wisdom come together.
For example, you would be able to tell if somebody was more sensitive to chronic fatigue syndrome or adrenal fatigue syndrome, for example, something like that. If they were more apt to, I guess, different diseases and whatnot, would you be able to tell that?
It started with them helping me because I
Hmm.
have one of those sort of evasive bodies where people are like, we're not sure what's going on. We're going to do all the tests, but we have no idea. And then in the end, they're like, oh, maybe you have anxiety, right?
Mm.
That happens a lot with people.
Mm.
And
Okay.
like I know what anxiety feels like. I know that's
Hmm.
not what is going on with me. So luckily I do have a doctor who's willing to listen, who does the test. But my guides were the ones who were coming in and saying, you're not taking your own wellness seriously. You need to be looking at these symptoms that you're feeling. You need to actually talk to your doctor about them. You need to do something about them. Because when you are a wellness provider, right, you're helping other people. And when you're a mom, and when you have gone through a lot of trauma, well, while you have to care for other people, you'll kind of become disembodied from your own pain, your own body. And so when I came out of that, I started realizing, when I came out of the trauma, how much pain I was in every day of my life. I was in so much pain. And then I was doing things to take my mind off the pain that weren't healthy either. My guides came in and they said, this is what is going on. And I was like, I thought that that's what it was. And it's chronic Lyme, which is, I can trace back to a bite that I got about 10 years ago. I did not have insurance and I didn't go to the doctor. I was sick for weeks. I just thought, hopefully I don't have Lyme, My doctor has suspected Lyme. We have looked into that before. And now I'm kind of being tested for some things that are going along with the Lyme. So POTS, for example. These are things that are very elusive and it's
Mhm.
hard to find this in somebody after they've had it for a long time. So it can be really frustrating when you know something's wrong. You know deep in your heart something is
Mhm.
going on here. And I just want relief. And then you'll go to the doctor and they're like, well, there's not here's a pain pill, right? Oh,
Mhm.
you get queasy sometimes. Well, your stomach looks okay. So here's a pill for your queasiness. And I didn't really want those things. And so I turned to herbs and I've been using herbs mostly. But my guides were the ones who could turn me to the right herbs with precision. They could tell me exactly what minerals I was deficient in, right?
Mhm.
So they can go to some depth with things. That's when I started radically changing my diet, radically changing my lifestyle because they prompted me to. And now I feel so much better. I haven't had an anxiety attack for years, so it was not anxiety. It was my body. And now I'm seeing the results of that. So it's super beneficial to understand the why. And I'm a why person. I've got pain. Well, why? What can happen? What is the thing that I need to do to make it better? So they can help fill that in.
Yeah, and that's important because, like you're saying about the Lyme, when it comes to chronic fatigue, you're experiencing so many different symptoms: brain fog. Of course, you have difficulty sleeping. Could be hormonal. Could be muscle aches. I mean, there's just so much to it that, yeah, like you said, going to the doctor, they may or may not take you seriously. They may be able to treat one thing, and meanwhile, you feel horrible. You don't know why you feel horrible. You don't know why you can't sleep. You don't know why you're not recovering after a good night's sleep. And just to know that there is some sort of assistance out there where somebody could kind of help you, get on the right track, point you in the right direction is worth everything, right? Just
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Just
So
that
I can see
light
that.
in the dark,
Hmm.
that light in the dark, because you can kind of just feel so dismissed and alone in your pain, in your struggles.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could be pain as well, depending on, I don't know, I guess it's fibromyalgia. Some people have chronic fatigue as well, and then they have, the pain and whatnot. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
Mhm.
lyme, you get a lot of fatigue, you get a lot of pain, you get tremors
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
sleep problems and all kinds of things that actually kind of can mimic fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. It can mimic those things as well. So these sort of dysregulation of your sort of like ability to carry your energy and carry
Mhm.
your immune system well, you just
Yes,
get kind of
yes.
overwhelmed, you get super sensitive, you react in big ways, and it can get so out of hand that you can't work, that you are just
Yes.
in your bed all day, and I have been there,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Maybe you have been too, I don't know, but it's a horrible feeling to be laying there and just wanting so bad to, especially when you're a person who likes to do, right?
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
You feel trapped by your own body.
Yeah, I remember just losing strength. Like I couldn't even do a push up. I remember that. Gut issues. I mean, there's just so many symptoms. It's absolutely depleting, depleting in
Mhm.
your confidence, your energy, of course. And yeah, it can really make people feel like they're alone because
Yeah.
nobody can tell them what's wrong. Yeah, you do very important work. Yes. Yeah, you really do. So that's wonderful.
It definitely helps me. It helps me heal when I can see that I can help somebody else shine this light on what's going on for them, you know? And so it's a two-way thing. It's like this really wonderful sort of energetic healing of two people when that happens.
Yeah. So let me ask you, how did you get into herbalism? Where does that fit into the scheme of things?
Man, so well, I had a rough life. I had a really rough life up until my daughter passed away. Surprisingly, now my life is really awesome. But up until then, I've lived with a lot of poverty, a lot of not having the resources that we needed in our family, and I was near homeless a lot of times. And so what happened was there was a certain point in my life when I said, you know what, enough of this. If I learn what plants I can eat out there and I learn what plants I can use for medicine, I'm going to feel a lot safer. And so first I started learning bioregionally around here in the Midwest. What can I eat? What mushrooms, what berries, what, roots, what's out there that I can eat. And so I would have a lot of fun learning this stuff. And I was empowering my children also, like to learn how to do this for themselves. And then I kind of had it in my brain like, oh, but the medicine stuff, that's way out of my league. And then there came a point where I was like, no, I'm going to dedicate myself to learning the medicinal side as well. So I started learning all the botanical names and all the constituents of the plants. And I did this on my own for quite a while. And that is a typical journey in herbalism these days where you'll be learning for a while and then you just kind of hit that point where you want to know so much more. And at that point, I turned to teachers. I had studied with Lola Stonehill out of Madison, Wisconsin, and David Winston, who was one of the founding members of the American Herbalist Guild. So I did his program as well. And that's how I became a clinical herbalist so that I'm able to assess someone's wellness and then recommend the appropriate herbal protocol for them. So that's how that part came in for me.
So with chronic fatigue, what are some of the more important herbs? I know ashwagandha is pretty big
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
I was dealing with it. What are
Yeah.
some others?
Ashwagandha, talking about ashwagandha because it is really important. The thing that it helps you do is it helps your body get back into the rhythms that you need to be in. For example, it helps you sleep deeper. It helps you sleep at the right time and better, right? And it also helps to alleviate some of the pain that you experience. But aside from ashwagandha being one that is really good for chronic fatigue, it really is specific to you. And that's, I think, where spirit comes in. It's really interesting because my guides will give me herbs that I've never even worked with. In fact, I had a lady here and we were going through things and there was, a lot of symptoms that kind of fit. And I was thinking of herbs and then I heard of this other herb and I said, okay, well, that's a Chinese herb. I've never used it. I don't know what it's for. And he goes, no. My guide was like, yeah, look this one up. And I looked it up and it fit exactly her symptom picture. And I was like, okay. What I try to do with the herbs that I use is I try to use herbs that are the most gentle because that's where we should start. We should start with the most gentle approach. And so what I would do is I would look at very specific things that are going on with you, right? What is going on with you? And why is this happening with you? So, which herb might match up to gently nudge that system back into a more regulated cycle? And so, it would be very different from person to person. I certainly have my favorites. For example, I really love linden flower and leaf for just that whole body anti-inflammatory. So many people have a lot of inflammation when it comes to, say, chronic fatigue or Lyme
Mhm.
or those kinds of things. So knocking down that inflammation is super important. That linden is a really great anti-inflammatory. So I love working with that. But there's so many. There are so many herbs.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And that's the thing. Best thing to do is to speak to somebody like you who is familiar with that stuff and to get that one on one personalized treatment. I think that's the best. Yeah.
It does help. I have people who come into the shop and they'll be telling me, well, this is what's going on. So I'm taking this formula that I found online and I'm taking these herbs because I saw a YouTube video. And really, it's like they're in a dark room trying to hit a target with an arrow,
Yeah.
and they don't even know where the target is. They're just kind of shooting in the dark. And if you are already in a state where you have that hypersensitive system,